I'm an honest man. The woman hairdresser or barber lady gave me a new hairdo, and I think I'm wearing pink. I'm a little self-conscious. I'm going to talk today. Today's homily is going to be about John in prison. That was my meditation. But first, I want to reflect on what happened today and yesterday. Today, I had a meeting with the management of the Haiti team. The people who are trying to encourage parishioners to go along with me to Haiti. And we came up with an idea that maybe some of you are being left behind because you don't have the money. So we're trying to come up with a scholarship, a way to get people to be encouraged. We need more men, particularly in May, to go on our next trip. And someone raised the issue, why are you going all the way to Haiti when there's problems right here in the neighborhood and things going on in your city? And I got a great answer. The academic system that we support in Haiti is tremendously successful. And with the same problems of poverty, much worse problems of poverty. Family problems, etc. We have an awesome program. I'm inviting you from the pulpit right now. So if any interest whatsoever, go along with me to Haiti. And I'm looking at Tom, who was in Haiti, and a few other people I've seen who have been to Haiti. It's a phenomenal experience. Certainly this time of the year, in terms of giving and being aware of how blessed we are, it's a tremendous shot in the arm of gratitude. So I'm just throwing it out at you. Yesterday at the Ralph Center, who was at the Ralph Center last night? What a concert! What a concert. You go next year. There were 13 violins, cellos, complete instrumentals, huge chorus. And in between songs, this little man with a funny outfit on, with funny hair, because I got funny hair, even funnier hair, he would introduce all the songs. And this was interesting to me, because I didn't know this. There was a very bad man in the 18th century who was a slave trader and transported slaves on ships. Bad man. Well, he finally had his conversion. The scales fell from his eyes. He realized what he had done. And he went and wrote Amazing Grace. And they sang, it was an amazing. It's amazing. So, we didn't make it. It's okay. I got a backup plan. Friday at 7 o'clock is their own Christmas concert. Yesterday they gave us a sheet of paper for Christmas cards. You know all the words already. Jingle bells, silent night, come on you people, deck the halls. So Friday at 7, we're having a Christmas concert here. Seriously, invite somebody. Invite somebody who doesn't practice, who doesn't have the faith. This is a great time of the year. It's not the season, folks. It's the Lord. The weather's horrible. I don't shop, so I really don't care. But for those of you who do, it can't be convenient. You got a park, it's freezing, everyone's kind of spotting through everywhere. There's mud and this and that. People are creating their own prisons, sadly, of consumerism, consumption, commercialism, conceitedness. I killed the 4 C's before I came out here. And they're throwing 4 walls closing in on them. Jesus is the reason for the season. This season doesn't stand without Jesus. This season would be horrible. It'd be like one of those walls that open up on Black Friday. Everyone comes tries to get the 50-inch plasma before the next guy. So let's be mindful of that. Also, this is the first Saturday in 12 years we're not going to have adoration. You would think, if you're visiting, that's horrible, no adoration. We got a chapel! We got a chapel. Hey, do me a favor, you can sing with me. Oh, come, let us adore Him. Oh, come, let us adore Him. Oh, come, let us adore Him. Christ the Lord. And Monsignor thanked everybody, but you know what we're going to thank? Thank the Lord for Monsignor. Because of all the things he did, he got the notice to go along with him. And that's a tough negotiation, but we come, so I know firsthand. It's all of you who make it possible. And if you're not in the plan, you're in it now. Make some room in your heart to adore. Don't be like that guy at the end when Mary and Joseph knocked. He said, there's no room in here. That can't be done with us. We have to rejoice. That's where it's color today. This rose-colored vestment. It's Gaudete, Sunday, meaning let's rejoice and be joyful in the Lord. Now, let's talk about prison, because this is a harsh reality. There's a lot of people in prison. You probably don't think about that. I used to say Mass in the McHenry County Jail. And I'll never forget that one time I was bringing in wine for Mass, and the guy stopped me. So you can't come in there with that. Oh, sure I can. He really can't. That's always the problem was. And of course I'm dressed in uniform. He says, you can't bring in there. Go talk to the chief. Little did he know that the chief, his name was Devoda, was a good Catholic boy. So that deputy sheriff, God bless his little heart, he never stopped me again. So I have a devotion to law enforcement. I'm the prayers for them. And for inmates too. Can you imagine? Can you imagine John in prison? Especially the dungeon prison he was in. It was dark, it was cold, the food was terrible. If there was any food at all, there were angry people. It reminds me of a little story, it's actually a little joke. A guy wanted to be a monk, and he went off to the monastery. He said, only 23 requirements. You got to work hard all year, you got to be quiet. At the end of the year, you get 2 words. So they have to call the guy after a year, and he says, speak the 2 words. The guy says, that's hard. He sent him off for another year. He works all year, he's quiet, the monk calls him back. Instead, he wants to be a monk. He says, speak your 2 words. He says, food's cold. So he goes out for another year, and he works hard, and the abbot calls him in, and he says, okay, after another year of silence, speak your 2 words. And the man says, I quit. And the abbot says, it's about time. Since you've been here, all you've been doing is complaining. Okay, so back to prison. One more prison story. There's 2 inmates in an Illinois correction facility. It's a federal penitentiary in Illinois. 2 inmates. And they bump into each other in the chow line. And the one inmate says to the other inmate, you know, the food was a lot better here when you were governor. I had to go there. And I'm happy the head law enforcement officer of our county is with us, so I hope he appreciates that. Okay, so we're back in prison. Here's my 3 questions. Why is he there? Why is he in prison? While he's in there, what's he doing? And while he's there, how is he doing? What's his mental state? First of all, why is John in jail? John is in jail because he stood up for traditional marriage. He told Herod, hey, that woman's not your wife. That's your brother's wife. John stood up for marriage. John is the first martyr for the sacramental redemption. That's why he's in prison. That's why he's in prison. Think about that. Where are you with that? I don't see many, sorry, I don't see too many Catholics standing up. It's a tough topic. I understand that. Not with the same energy level or fervor, certainly with compassion. But I know that the majority, 90-some% of the blessings I got in my life came from my parents. And I like my mommy. I miss my daddy. And they were the source and the foundation of all the good that I received in this life. So, in my opinion, with my belief system, marriage is worth defending. I can still love people who disagree with that notion and still defend what I believe is the cornerstone of our civilization. That needs to be respected. So now we know why he's there. While he's in there, what's he doing? What do you think he's doing? He's praying. He's already used to fasting. He's fasting. I'm sure to the inmates that there are others and the guards, he's talking about the Lord. He's saying, hey, Jesus has come. He's trying to convert people, even in prison. You and I are out of prison, we won't talk about Jesus. He's in prison talking about Jesus. Trying to have others think different thoughts. Trying to persuade them, hey, the guard, what's his name? Antoine, the Archbishop from Vietnam, Archbishop of Vietnam. When he was in prison, he would convince the guards to think about life in a different way. They hated him, but he still had the patience and the foresight and the spiritualness to say, hey guys, I know you don't like me and you're incarcerated, and I don't know how I can be your enemy, but the Lord still loves you. The Lord still desires your company. That's a profound insight. So what was he doing? He was stirring up hearts. He was inviting other people to conversion. So what was he doing? How was he doing spiritually? I say in prison, John was joyful. John was joyful. John was hopeful. John was living out in prison the very spirituality we try to practice year-round, especially for some during this time of year. Forgiving and giving. That's what John was doing. John had potentially all these things against him, yet because of his trust in God and his love of the Lord, he was able to minister even under the most difficult conditions. Now, people might ask you, yourself, if you read this, because if you didn't read this, I gotta be honest with you. These thoughts want to pop into your head. This is not a shadow of a bow. If it is what it is, okay? We're going on grand day. If it's a shadow of a bow, it is what it is. These are important questions to ask before you come to Mass. You've got to do yourself honest. You've got to do your own reflections. Because if you caught this on the first reading, if you heard this on the first reading, you might not have caught this. John sends his disciples to Jesus to ask if he's the one. That's what it says. But the gospel starts with it saying, when John the Baptist heard in prison of the works of Christ, then he sent his disciples. Here's the point. From a quick reading, you could think that John was doubting, that he's in prison. In fact, he doesn't get much communication with his disciples. He can't see the Lord in prison. Maybe he was in despair. Maybe he fell out of faith. And he sent his disciples to go tell the Lord, hey, are you the one? Am I following the right guy? But if you read it carefully, when he had the church fathers support this position, this interpretation, John is sending his disciples to Jesus for their sakes. He knows this guy. I know what God takes you into the world. And what does Jesus tell them? Jesus is basically preaching to them vis-a-vis them being messengers to go tell John. It's a very interesting strategy going on here. It's very complex, very psychological. And Jesus tells them the truth. The blind see, the lame walk, lepers are cleansed, the deaf hear, the dead are raised, and the poor have the good news proclaimed to them. And it is our hope, it is John's prayer, that at that moment, his disciples were converted from his leadership to God's leadership. And he transferred them over to Jesus. That's what we like to believe. John believed in his heart, I'm hoping, I'm thinking, I'm feeling, that his suffering for Jesus and his ultimate death and martyrdom was going to go for Jesus' way, for his suffering and death for all of us. John's suffering was taken in context with what the Lord was going to do. Do you see your suffering in context with what the Lord's doing? Do you see the limitations, the difficulties, the people who want to talk to Jesus about, but you just don't have the guts, or it's not the right time? Do you see that your proclamation to your friends and family, those who work with and associate with, is the Lord's proclamation to them? Do you see it that way? Do you see his mission as part and parcel of your mission? I'd like you to. John had great confidence in what he was ushering in by his death. What was going to be what he was ushering in, which is a new era and a new kingdom and a new spirit. My friends, we are the possessors of the Spirit. We've been given it, and we have been given it bountifully, in overabundance. Open up and receive the Spirit. Enter this great season. As we have one Sunday left before Xmas, Christmas. And again, it's called the Mass. Christmas is the Mass of Christ. It came out to be Christmas, much like Santa Claus and St. Nicholas. And it went through some translation. Christmas is the Mass of Christ. It's the giving present of his life, death, and resurrection. If that's not good news, I don't know what is. If that doesn't stir your heart and wants you to be a harbinger, a messenger of this incredible news, not for some people, that's a mistake, for everyone. He is not a Lord of some people. He's a Lord of everybody. And let us start by making the Lord of our hearts. For all my other friends, and we may share a bit of this, maybe on parole, but there are lots of people who are living in their own prisons of resentment, regrets, negativity, things that they never accomplished. Again, consumerism, commercialism, consumption. Please, be a spiritual sledgehammer that first breaks down your own four walls, then helps others break down theirs. Because when you let someone out of prison, when someone gets out of I can't say the joint, when someone gets out of the big house, these are different people. I don't know whether they go back to crime or not, but as soon as they walk out, get a good meal, sleep under a different roof in their own bed, they feel like $1 million, which is now worth about $350,000. So about $4 million. When you get out of that prison, I suspect you're going to want to dine sumptuously at the feast the Lord has so beautifully prepared for us. The feast of his true body and true blood.